So recently I have been out doing some street photography. I like doing it this time of year because there's a lot going on. There's loads of people out and about. It's an interesting time. There's all the Christmas lights. It's just nice. There's a lot of nice vibes out there, a lot of nice candid moments to catch. And while I was out, I took obviously a bunch of different photos, and there's one that we're going to edit together today, and we're going to talk about why you might choose to go into black and white and how you're actually going to go about doing that in Adobe Lightroom Classic. So let's dive in. We've got this photo here. Now this was a guy who was out dancing. It was really cold. I was in like a hat and gloves and scarf and all this stuff. And this guy's out dancing with his top off. It was really cool. Everyone seemed to be really into it. There was like a bunch of people playing trumpets as well. It was this really nice Christmassy scene. It was very, very, very hard. It felt like I was in a film, and it was really, really nice. So anyway, I took this photo. I deliberately waited to shoot through a crowd of people, so we had people walking on either side, so that you could get a bit of a feel for the fact that it's a bit more of a busy town center. There's people around, and this guy's dancing. I also took a few photos to try and get the best pose, and I think I quite like this one. So we're going to edit this together. This was taken on the Canon R6 II, and this is with the Canon RF 135mm f1.8, so a great lens for this kind of thing. Really beautiful images. And I think I want to pop it into black and white. Now the thought process behind this, and the thought process I always take when deciding whether something should be in black and white or in color, is always, does the color serve a purpose to the photo? And there's loads of different ways that it could serve a purpose. And most of the time, my decision is that yes, I prefer color and that I think it does serve a purpose. But in this case, when I look at it, I think to myself, okay, there's no Christmas lights, so there's no kind of Christmas feel to it specifically that makes me want to keep color. There's no specific reason the color is important to the photo. There's nothing there which is really, beautiful colors. And actually, does the color distract from the photo? Well, there's nothing overly distracting, but this purple sign in the background might be a little bit distracting. And I just don't think we need the color there, so it can only distract, if that makes sense. Whereas I think with black and white, it becomes more about him. It becomes more about the contrast and the light and the shadows and that sort of stuff. And I think that's good. I think it becomes more about the story of the photo. So I think in this case, going black and white serves the photo better than keeping it in color. And the easiest way to do that in Lightroom, I've seen people before come over and just bring the saturation all the way down. But that's actually not the best way to do it at all. The best way is to come up to here where you can see it says color and then there's black and white just on the basic panel. And if we just click black and white, it is going to turn this into a black and white photo. Shocking, I know. And then we have slightly different sliders, and certain sliders are now gone. Like vibrance and saturation are gone because there's no point to having them. And we can now adjust this and edit this slightly differently. And I would edit a black and white photo differently from how I would edit a color photo. So let's just get into actually editing it. First of all, with a black and white photo, almost always I'm going to bump the contrast up. It just feels like once you've gone black and white, you kind of may as well lean into the contrast because that's now what it's all about, I guess. The light, the shadow, and the contrast between them. So I'll always bump that contrast up. I'm actually going to bring the highlights down a little bit and just bring the shadows up just a touch. And I'm going to bring the clarity up as well. Maybe the texture just a little bit. Now we're going to go down. We're going to leave the curve. I'm going to leave the black and white mix as well, which is where I can adjust the luminance of what are different colors. I might bring that orange up a touch. You see, if I bring it up a lot, it's going to really affect the skin tones. I just want to brighten that a little bit there. I'm going to leave color grading. We don't want to add any color in. And otherwise, I am going to add a little bit of a vignette. So about -19, -20, that's probably about right, because I want the focus to really be on this guy. I really want this photo to be about him. He's having the time of his life, dancing away. It's Christmas music going on, and he doesn't care about all the people walking past him. He's just having a good time. And that's really the story that we're going for with this photo. So immediately the global edit, which is where we affect the entire photo as a whole, we're probably done. Next up, I'm going to come up to masking. Now, first of all, I'm going to click subject here. That's going to select him. Lightroom has actually selected some of these people as well, which I don't actually want, but that's not a problem. Do you know what? It's the first time that's ever really happened to me with Lightroom. But I can come up here to subtract on this mask, and I can just go brush, and I can just make that nice and big, and I can just brush out these people. If I make the flow 100, I can actually just get rid of these people as part of that mask. And now we just have our guy here as part of mask 1. And what I'm going to do is just bring the exposure up a little bit and the clarity up. And you can see that's immediately going to make him pop Next, I'm going to create a new mask. I'm going to go radial gradient, and I just want to put this over him a little bit like this. Let's make that feather something like that. So what we're going to do is click invert, and we're going to use this to create even more of a sort of vignette here. There we go. I quite like that. Let's do another mask. Let's go radial gradient. This time I'm going to pop it over him like this. And now I'm going to click on these three dots. I'm going to go intersect mask with select subject. Now that means that that radial gradient that I've just drawn on there is now going to be intersecting with also masking our subject, which means the radial gradient is only applied onto the subject. But we want to untick this invert box. We want that radial gradient to be applied behind our subject. So we've intersected it with him, and actually now we've got it there minus our subject. And what I'm going to do is experiment a little bit here. I'm going to bring the exposure down a bit. How far down can it go before it gets a bit weird? Let's go something like that. How does that look if I turn that off and turn it back on? It's an interesting one. It's probably a bit of a subjective decision as to whether that's good or bad. I quite like it, and I think it helps to actually separate him from the background a little bit more. I might even, what happens if I bring the dehaze down as well? No, I'm going to leave that as it is. I think that's enough. If we turn off all the masks and then turn them back on, we've made a big difference to the photo. And actually, I think we've probably done about everything I would want to do. What if we were to come in and crop this a little bit? Something like this. Let's just go for something like that. That way he's kind of right in the middle there of the photo. We've got the people either side. We've got a nice sort of vignette around him. He's really the focal point of the image in terms of brightness, contrast, everything. I think that looks really good. I'm really happy with that. And I think, you know, if you were to look at that, if we were to press the backslash key, which will show us how this photo looked before we did anything to it, and then where we are now, I think the black and white serves the photo really well. I don't think there's any interesting color there to worry about. And if anything, the purple might be a little bit distracting. Whereas with black and white, I think it becomes all about our subject here and the story of what's going on and that kind of thing. And I really, really like that. So that's kind of a short, I guess, a little bit shorter than I thought it would be, edit that we've done there to this photo. But I'd love to hear your thought process. How do you decide whether to go black and white or whether to go color? Or do you decide at the time of taking the photo? I'll generally always shoot in RAW and decide that kind of thing later. But I'd be really interested to find out whether you choose this sort of stuff when you're actually taking the photo and you make those decisions much earlier on in the process. And if not, how do you decide that kind of thing? Let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear all of your thoughts on that kind of stuff. Otherwise, of course, there's a full list of all the kit used for this photo, for this video, everything down in the description. I will see you in the next video. But until then, of course, as always, thanks for watching.